Hello, my name is David Kuchar, better known as Dr. Dave on YouTube, I guess. I just wanted to give you a little recap today of what I'm about and what my channel's about. When I was a teenager, I went to Mexico to study Spanish, and I met this guy, and it was really kind of strange and interesting, but it turned out to be the Zodiac killer, Frank Lee Morris. He gave me tons of clues as to who he was, but he never really came out and told me. So it took me a lot of years to figure it out, and honestly I believe that I was blocking things out as our friendship went along, because Frank Morris had a split personality. One moment he was your best friend, and then suddenly he was looking at you with rage and like he couldn't wait to see you with your throat cut. Now, you know, it's nothing to be proud of, knowing a serial killer, especially due to the fact that it took me a lifetime to figure it all out. And you know, one time Frank told me that I should write a book about him. He wasn't in a good mood that day. Usually when he would tell me something like that, he'd be in a good mood, but he told me that I should write a book about him because a lot of people had, and none of them knew him. And that's the way he said it. You know me, they didn't. I am working on a book. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time. I do have a chiropractic clinic with active patients, and I also own a health club. So if you're watching my videos, you're gonna be seeing little by little the whole story about how this relationship with this serial killer developed. And don't think it was something where we hung around together, okay? I would pass his house and he would come out and talk to me. And other than that, whenever I would see him, he would be stalking me. Now, when I started doing some research to write this book, which actually started out being about D.B. Cooper, because it turns out that Frank Morris was also D.B. Cooper, that was the only story that I could remember that he had told me. But as I started researching the book, I came across a picture of the Zodiac killer mask, and I tell you, I almost hit the floor because he showed me that mask. He tried to get me into his patio where they could lock me in, and the Anglin brothers, who was Frank Morris's accomplices, tried to get behind me and push me in there, and I ducked and got away. These are things I want to make a video on, but I really think I need actors and a producer, so maybe we'll save that for the movie, which means the book has to come out first. But I did want to tell you a couple of things today. There were a couple of times where they tried to get me alone where they could shoot me, and one of them, Frank, got really brave. You know, first I should tell you that the reason that I think that I survived all of these attacks, because as I studied more and more about Frank, I started realizing that he had been attacking me since I was 4 or 5 years old. He started out in Florida, and then it ended up in Mexico City. And they stalked around my house, but I wanted you to know that I think the reason that I survived all these attacks is because I knew how to fight. And Frank once told me that I was the way I was because of him. The same reason that he was a murderer because he was abused as a child. I think what he was trying to say was them trying to kill me was a type of abuse, and it caused me to grow up to be a fighter. I started studying judo when I was very young. Then I went to wrestling. I went to karate. I felt this need to be able to defend myself all the time, and yeah, that's where it came from being stalked by a serial killer. So if you watch my videos, you're gonna be able to put the pieces to the puzzle together the way I have. I have like 90 videos now, I think, on YouTube. And the reason I chose this form to tell my story is because it's easier and quicker than writing a book. And hopefully everyone will see the videos and start to realize that the 3 biggest mysteries in this country that many people and many internet channels are holding out to be a great mystery. One is D.B. Cooper, the other one is the escape from Alcatraz, and the other one is the Zodiac killer. Well, it's all 3 the same people, okay? That's what made it so difficult for him to catch the Zodiac killer, because Frank and the Anglin brothers wouldn't stalk someone together. Two of them would be hidden, and one of them would approach the victim. And this is something else that I've kind of figured out, because that's the way they always did it with me. That's part of why I never realized that all these attacks were the same people. One day one of them would be standing in front of you, the next day would be another one. And when you see them all three together, they weren't attacking. These guys, I don't know how they, actually did it to actually capture someone, because they never caught me. But somewhere in there, I think one of them got control, either by just pointing a gun at someone or whatever. And once he did, then the other ones would come in. But there was a time when I saw them, all three, surround a guy and take him around the corner there in Mexico City. And I heard a gunshot. But anyhow, all the details on all of these things will be in my book, which I hope to have done by the first of the year 2017, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get it done or not. If you'll watch my videos and study them, read the comments. Some people are making interesting comments and asking me questions that you may have, and I'm answering those questions in there. Feel free to make comments, but keep it interesting. The channel is about keeping people interested in this subject, so that people will understand that this mystery that, the whole country seems to want to hold up in front of everybody and say, wow, what a mystery. There's no mystery to it. The only mystery to it was that it was perpetrated by Frank Lee Morris, and Frank Lee Morris was a genius with an IQ of 133. He had the ability to think these things out. Now, just being a genius isn't enough. There's a lot of psychopathic killers that are geniuses, but Frank was also a very methodical planner. He would spend a lot of time planning what he was going to do so that he wouldn't make any mistakes. Frank told me that he spent 1 year planning the D.B. Cooper jump, and he buried the money in places where it has never been dug up. He gave me some hints and clues as to where it's at, and I went to those places, and I found areas where I'm sure that money's at, but I can't get the authorities to help me out with it. So I wanted to just give you the scenario of the couple of times that they almost got me alone. Frank started talking to me like he was my best friend. He says, come on. He never would call me by my name. They never spoke names. One time I heard John Anglin call him Frank, but he told me, come on, let's go. We'll walk down this road. It's nice and quiet over here. I can imagine Sherry Jo Bates. This is what happened to her. He's going to help her with her car. Come on, it's nice and quiet. Jeez. And, as we're going, I keep seeing him looking around. And I'm like, what are you looking for? No, nothing. And he was looking and checking to make sure the Anglin brothers were in place. You see, Frank Morris knew nothing about fighting. Frank told me that he was not a fighter and that he had no interest in fighting. I'm assuming that his interest was, once the person was conquered, then he got to be the butcher. And that some kind of a psychopathic control issue that would take over at that time and make him feel good about himself. But when it came to a fight, it was easy to get him on his knees begging. Believe me, I had him there twice. So we're walking down this lonely road, and he keeps looking for the Anglin brothers, and they were stationed in different places. And I couldn't tell this back then, but now I'm thinking back, yeah, he had these guys well trained so that, they knew where their positions were supposed to be and where they were supposed to be posted. And when he would get to a certain spot with the victim, they knew when to move and where to move and how to keep the victim from knowing that they were part of it until it was too late. But with me, it wasn't quite that easy. And I also was a good runner. We did a lot of running and wrestling practice, and when all else failed, hit the hoofs. And I would take off running, and they couldn't catch me because they only had one guy that could run. That was Clarence, and Clarence didn't like to fight that much either. John Anglin, he didn't care about anything. He would fight, and he would do whatever Frank told him to do. But Frank told me that John Anglin injured his ankle jumping over a wall when they got out of Alcatraz, and he was having problems with it. So there was two of those three that really couldn't run very much. When I'd take off running, it was pretty easy to get away from them. I was lucky I didn't get shot running away. But anyhow, I'm going down this road, and he's looking around, and we get to the end of the road, and we sat down and I see him do a few things. He had these motions that he would do with his cigarette that were signals to the Anglin brothers to reposition or whatever, because I would see a car move and stop, and there would be somebody sitting in the car looking at me. I even mentioned to him something to him about it one day. But anyway, he tells me to sit down on this park bench, and I sit down, and he's talking to me like, you know, he's my best friend. And then all of a sudden he reaches over like this and turns like this, and when he did, his shirt came up and I could see a pistol. And my dad had already told me in Mexico, if you see a gun, you need to start fighting and don't stop until either you kill the guy or you get the gun away from him, and you're probably going to have to kill him anyway. He was explaining to me about psychopaths, because there's a lot of them hiding out in Mexico City. Well, he pulled the gun out, and when he did, I was already behind him. You know, we parlayed a little bit, and I got him to put the gun away by threatening him. And the Anglin brothers started moving in, and I didn't know that these guys were three at the time. I thought it was just Frank. But they stayed at a distance where they could see that I wasn't threatened, because they knew that I would respond when I realized that they were going to move in, because they dealt with me before. I've escaped from them many times when I was a kid, and I am going to make some videos on some of those escapes too, besides the ones I've already made some, but there's so many more. I know that they've attacked me and stalked me at least 30 times throughout my life that I can remember. But anyway, a lot of times I think I was blessed, because he put the gun away, I went back around and sat down in front of him, and he slowly took it out again, and he held it up like this and said, you know, I just wanted to show you the gun. Now, you see, he knew that my dad was a gun collector, so that was natural to me to look at a gun. And then he started putting it back in his hand again, and then he turns around and he starts pointing it at me, and I was getting ready to take it away from him, and at that instant, a woman started yelling at him, and I told him, there's somebody coming, you better put the gun away. And he put the gun away, and he turned, and she starts yelling at him in Spanish that he took her son and her nephew and, you know, these other kids, and he just threw up his hands and said, you all are crazy, and he left. And she told me, you better get away from this guy, and you better not be down here by yourself, because he's taking kids. And I go, what do you mean he's taking them? She says, I don't know what he's doing with them, but they're disappearing left and right, and he's got to do with it. And I was like, wow, that's really strange. I asked her if I could walk her home, and she wouldn't let me. And I think I probably ran home after that, but that's a lifetime of knowing a serial killer. Watch my videos and try to figure this whole thing out, and keep in mind that Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, their escape from Alcatraz, and the D.B. Cooper jump, and the Zodiac killer were all the same people. The mystery will all go out of this whole thing, and you'll understand what really happened. And I want you to know, I don't like mysteries. I don't like murders. I don't like murder mysteries. I'm not into any of that kind of thing. I'm sort of a reality type person, because I'm a doctor. But this story I have to tell, because I knew these guys, and Frank told me, you need to tell this story because you knew me. You're the only one that knew me. Imagine knowing someone who is your best friend 1 second, and then suddenly their face turns into anger and they want to kill you. You know, I can't believe I didn't figure the whole thing out, but this is the way it is. So I hope my stories will help you to understand that these three biggest mysteries aren't as mysterious as they really look. The only mystery was the genius who was a methodical planner. And give my videos a thumbs up. That really, really helps out in this whole YouTube video production thing that us YouTubers have to go through to get these videos to you. And I welcome your comments. Thank you very much.